Advisor.
A financial advisor.
Advisory.
Advisory.
The Environmental Protection Advisory Committee. He was employed in a purely advisory role.
The State Department issues travel advisories about conditions overseas.
Advocacy.
Advocacy.
Advocate.
Advocate.
Extremists were openly advocating violence.
Those who advocate for doctor-assisted suicide say the terminally ill should not have to suffer.
She's a passionate advocate of natural childbirth, an advocate for the disabled.
Adware.
Adware.
Ads.
Ads.
Aegis.
Aegis.
A refugee camp operating under the aegis of the UN.
Ian.
Ian.
Aerate.
Aerate.
Aerial.
Aerial.
An aerial attack. Aerial photographs. An aerial view of the Three Gorges Dam project.
Aerialist.
Aerialist.
Aero. Aero.
Aerodynamics. An aero engine.
Aerobatics.
Aerobatics. Aerobic.
Aerobic.
Running, swimming, and other forms of aerobic exercise.
Aerobics.
Aerobics.
Aerodrome.
Aerodrome.
Aerodynamic.
Aerodynamic.
Aerodynamic efficiency.
Aerodynamics.
Aerodynamics.
Aerogram.
Aerogram.
Aeronautics.
Aeronautics.
Aeroplane.
Aeroplane.
Aerosol.
Aerosol.
Aerospace.
Aerospace.
Employment in the aerospace industry.
Aesthete.
Aesthete.
Aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
From an aesthetic point of view, it's a nice design. A work of great aesthetic appeal. Aesthetically pleasing.
A new aesthetic.
Ether.
Ether.
Etiology.
Etiology.
Afar.
Afar.
I saw him from afar.
Affable.
Affable.
An affable guy.
Affair.
Affair.
Are you interested in world affairs? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Women had little role in public affairs.
I am not prepared to discuss my financial affairs with the press. The Watergate affair. The whole affair was a disaster. The party was a very grand affair. He had an affair with his boss that lasted 6 years. The computer was one of those little portable affairs. What I do in my free time is my affair.
Affect.
Affect.
The areas affected by the hurricane. A disease that affects the central nervous system. Decisions which affect our lives. Trading has been adversely affected by the downturn in consumer spending. Trading has been adversely affected by the downturn in consumer spending. We were all deeply affected by her death. As usual, Simon affected complete boredom. He used to affect a foreign accent.
Affectation.
Affectation.
Calling everyone darling is just an affectation.
Affected.
An affected laugh.
Affected.
Affecting.
Affecting.
A deeply affecting story.
Affection.
Affection.
Bart had a deep affection for the old man. She looked back on those days with affection. Their father never showed them much affection. The church was held in great affection by the local residents. Africa has always had a special place in my affections.
Affectionate.
Affectionate.
Joe is very affectionate towards her. An affectionate hug.
Affective. Affective.
Affective disorders.
Affective computing. Affective computing.
Affidavit.
Affidavit.
Affiliate.
Affiliate.
The society is not affiliated with any political party. The church's right to affiliate to Rome. She affiliated herself with the Impressionist school of painting. Volvo's Japanese affiliate, Mitsubishi.
Affiliated.
Affiliated.
The association provides information on affiliated clubs.
Affiliation.
Affiliation.
The newspaper's political affiliations.
Affinity.
Affinity.
Is remarkable affinity with animals. The affinity between Christian and Chinese concepts of the spirit.
Affinity card.
Affirm.
Affirm.
The general affirmed rumors of an attack. A spokesman for the company affirmed that a merger was likely. He claims that modern physics affirms his Christian beliefs.
Affirmative.
Affirmative.
An affirmative nod.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Affix.
Affix.
A label must be affixed to all parcels.
Afflict.
Afflict.
A country afflicted by famine.
Affliction.
Affliction.
The afflictions of old age.
Affluent.
Affluent.
Affluent families.
The affluent Côte d'Azur.
Afford.
Afford.
We can't afford to go on vacation this year. I couldn't afford the rent on my own. How can she afford to eat out every night? Dad can't afford any more time off work. We can't afford to wait any longer or we'll miss the plane.
Affordable.
Affordable.
Affordable housing.
This is a top quality product at a very affordable price.
Afforestation.
Afforestation.
Affray.
Affray.
Affricate.
Affricate.
Affront.
Affront.
He stepped back, affronted by the question. The comments were an affront to his pride.
Afghan.
Afghan. Afghan.
Aficionado.
Aficionado.
An aficionado of fine food.
Afield.
Afield.
They were exporting as far afield as Alexandria. Students who come from further afield.
Afire.
Afire.
One of the boats had been set afire.
Aflame.
Aflame.
Most of the city was aflame.
Trees aflame with autumn leaves.
AFL-CIO.
AFL-CIO.
Afloat.
Afloat.
The Treasury borrowed £40 billion just to stay afloat.
Somehow we kept the ship afloat.
Afoot.
Afoot.
There were plans afoot for a second attack.
Aforethought.
Aforethought.
Aforementioned.
Aforementioned.
The property belongs to the aforementioned Mr. Jones.
Afoul.
Afoul.
Afraid.
Afraid.
There's no need to be afraid.
Many children are afraid of the dark. I was a little afraid of him when I first met him. Some old people are afraid of going out alone. Zoe was afraid to go back into the house.
He was afraid that the other kids would laugh at him.
She was half afraid that he would say no.
I didn't tell her because I was afraid of upsetting her.
The government was afraid of the reaction from the public.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Her father looked ill, and she was suddenly afraid for him. Many of us were afraid for our jobs. That's the most we can offer you, I'm afraid. I'm afraid you've come to the wrong address. Is she very ill? I'm afraid so. Did you see him? I'm afraid not.
Afresh.
Afresh.
He moved to America to start afresh.
African.
African. African.
African American.
African American.
Afrikaans.
Afrikaans.
Afrikaner.
Afrikaner.
Afro.
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 An Afro-American. Afro-Caribbean children.
Afrobeat. Afrobeat.
Aft.
Aft.
After.
After.
After the war, many soldiers stayed in France. I go swimming every day after work. Do you believe in life after death? The first attack started just after midnight. David went to bed straight after supper.
After you'd called the police, what did you do?
Zimmermann changed his name after he left Germany. People still remembered the 1958 revolution and what came after. After leaving school, McKay worked in a restaurant for a year. 10 years after he bought the painting, Carswell discovered that it was a fake. His car was outside your house the morning after Bob's engagement party. I'll see you again tomorrow or the day after. She retired from politics the year after she received the Nobel Prize. Not long after the wedding, his wife became ill. The family moved to Hardingham in June 1983, and Sarah's first child was born soon after.
After 10 minutes, remove the cake from the oven.
You'll get used to it after a while.
After months of negotiation, an agreement was finally reached. Whose name is after yours on the list? The date should be written after the address.
After football, tennis is my favourite sport.
The UK is the world's third largest arms producer, after the USA and Russia. The movie starts at 7:15. He's worked in that same office week after week, year after year, since he was 18. Go after him and apologize. I heard someone running after me, and a voice called my name. Good luck, she called after me as I left. Harry stood in the doorway, gazing after her. Remember to close the door after you. I spend all day cleaning up after the kids. I'm not surprised he walked out after the way she treated him.
After your letter, I didn't think I'd ever see you again.
I'm not surprised he walked out after the way she treated him. How can you treat me like this after all I've done for you?
Turn left after the hotel.
After a mile, you will come to a crossroads.
That boy's always in trouble. The police are after him again. Were you after anything in particular? No, we're just looking. I think Chris is after my job. Ever since we moved here, it's been one problem after another. He wrote to say they couldn't give me a job after all. Union leaders announced that they would, after all, take part in the national conference. Prisoners should be treated with respect. They are human beings, after all. I don't know why you're so concerned. It isn't your problem, after all.
His name is Alessandro, after his grandfather. It was named Waterloo Bridge after the famous battle.
A painting after Rembrandt. Do you need the copier? After you. After you with that knife, please.
After.
After.
An after-dinner speech. After-school activities.
Afterbirth.
Afterbirth.
Afterburner.
Afterburner.
Aftercare.
Aftercare.
The aftercare of ex-offenders.
After effect.
After effect.
The after effects of his illness.
Afterglow.
Afterglow.
The afterglow of victory.
Afterlife.
Afterlife.
Aftermath.
Aftermath.
The danger of disease in the aftermath of the earthquake.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
There's a meeting on Thursday afternoon. It was very hot in the afternoon. See you tomorrow afternoon. Are you going into town this afternoon? We met in the early afternoon. By late afternoon, Mickey had changed his mind. He was having his afternoon nap. She only works afternoons.
Afternoon.
Afters.
Afters.
After-school club. After-school club.
Aftershave.
Aftershave.
Aftershock.
Aftershock.
The war and its aftershocks.
Aftertaste.
Aftertaste.
The wine leaves a strong aftertaste.
Afterthought.
Afterthought.
Afterwards.
Afterwards.
Charles arrived shortly afterwards.
The experience haunted me for years afterwards.
She died not long afterwards. Afterwards, I was asked to write a book.
Again.
Again.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear. I'll never go there again. Mr. Khan's busy. Can you try again later? In 1997, the family moved house yet again. Once again, Drew was under arrest. She stayed and nursed him back to health again. It's great to have you home again. I had to write the essay all over again. What a fantastic lunch! I could eat the same again. Nearly as many again died from pneumonia. The amount of crime is about half as much again as it was in 1973. Another drink? Yes, same again, please. And again, these workshops will benefit the community widely. She says she's 35, but then again, she might be lying. I've told you again and again, don't do that. What did you say your name was again?
Against.
Against.
Every council member voted against the proposal. Those who are campaigning against the new road.
He advised me against travelling.
Mr. Howard has declared that he is against all forms of racism. The fight against terrorism. They got married against her parents' wishes. The fight against terrorism. They got married against her parents' wishes. She has been kept in the house against her will. The use of certain drugs is against the law. It's against my principles to borrow money. There ought to be a law against it. Gambati was injured in last Saturday's game against the Lions.
We'll be competing against the best companies in Europe.
Violence against elderly people.
Crimes against humanity.
Discrimination against women. There had been death threats against prison staff. Your lack of experience could count against you. The regulations tend to work against smaller companies. The sound of the rain drumming against my window. The car skidded, and we could hear the crunch of metal against metal. There was a ladder propped up against the wall. The younger policeman was leaning against the bureau with his arms folded. Sailing against the wind. She dived down and swam out strongly against the current. He could see a line of figures silhouetted against the sky.
It is important to know what colours look good against your skin.
The reforms were introduced against a background of social unrest. The pound has fallen 10% against the dollar. She checked the contents of the box against the list. The cost of the proposed research needs to be balanced against its benefits. Insurance against accident and sickness. A cream to protect against sunburn. A vaccine which is effective against pneumonia. He has always emphatically denied the allegations against him. The evidence against you is overwhelming. You see, this is what we're up against. The suppliers just aren't reliable. I don't have anything against babies. I just don't feel very comfortable with them.
Agape.
Agape.
Vince watched, his mouth agape in horror.
Agate.
Agate.
Age.
Age.
Francis is the same age as me. Experts disagree over the age of the drawings. Dad retired at the age of 56.
In Britain, schooling starts at age 5.
She was just over 16 years of age.
At my age, it's quite difficult getting up the stairs.
People over the age of 65. People over the age of 65. She's tall for her age, isn't she? What's the minimum age for getting a driver's license? You're not allowed to buy alcohol. You're underage.
The normal retirement age is 65. When you get to old age, everything seems to take longer.
The early teens are often a difficult age. High blood pressure increases with age. Some of the furniture was showing signs of age. We are living in the age of technology. Molecular biology is pushing medicine into a new age. Simon, I haven't seen you for ages. That recipe takes ages. It's ages since we've played that game. During this period, the movies really came of age as an art form.
Udge. Udge. Here's some interesting statage about the game.
Age appropriate.
Age appropriate. Age appropriate toys.
Age bracket.
Age bracket.
Single people in the 40 to 50 age bracket.
Aged.
Aged.
Police are looking for a man aged between 30 and 35. The course is open to children aged 12 and over. My aged parents. The care of children and the aged.
Age discrimination.
Age discrimination.
Age group.
Age group.
A book for children in the 12 to 14 age group.
Aging.
Aging.
Ageism.
Ageism.
Ageist.
Ageist.
The article seems somewhat insensitive and ageist to me.
Ageless.
Ageless.
Her face seemed ageless.
The ageless charm of a country kitchen.
Age limit.
Age limit.
The upper age limit for entrance was set at 25.
Agency.
Agency.
A local housing agency.
A UN agency responsible for helping refugees.
The Environmental Protection Agency.
Agenda.
Agenda.
Measures to combat terrorism will be high on the agenda. The government set an agenda for constitutional reform. The Republicans have stuck to their conservative agenda.
The next item on the agenda.
Agent.
Agent.
Our agent in Rio deals with all our Brazilian business. We're acting as agents for Mr. Watson. My agent has a new script for me to look at. A literary agent. An intelligence agent. An FBI agent.
An undercover agent.
Agent provocateur.
Agent provocateur.
Age of consent.
Age of consent.
Age-old.
Age-old.
Age-old customs.
The age-old problem of sexual discrimination.
Age range.
Age range.
Young people in the 15 to 18 age range. This affects people across a wide age range.
Agflation.
Agflation. A major cause of agflation is the growing use of crops for fuel.
Agglomerate.
Agglomerate.
Agglomeration.
Agglomeration.
Buildings in an agglomeration of styles.
Agglutination.
Agglutination.
Aggrandizement.
Aggrandizement.
The misuse of authority for personal aggrandizement.
Aggravate.
Aggravate.
Their money problems were further aggravated by a rise in interest rates. Building the new road will only aggravate the situation. What really aggravates me is the way she won't listen.
Aggravated.
Aggravated.
He was charged with aggravated assault.
Aggregate.
Aggregate.
The smaller minorities got an aggregate of 1,327 votes. In the aggregate, women outlive men by 7 or more years.
Manchester United won 2-1 on aggregate.
An increase in the aggregate production.
Aggression.
Aggression.
Television violence can encourage aggression in children. Our dogs have never shown aggression towards other dogs. An unprovoked act of aggression. Athenian aggression against Persia.
Aggressive.
Aggressive.
Jim's voice became aggressive.
Teachers apparently expect a certain amount of aggressive behavior from boys.
A successful businessman has to be aggressive. An aggressive marketing campaign.
An aggressive form of breast cancer.
Aggressor.
Aggressor.
Measures taken to deter potential aggressors.
Aggrieved.
Aggrieved.
An aggrieved tone of voice. The aggrieved party.
Aggro.
Aggro.
I hope he doesn't cause any aggro. I can't cope with all this aggro.
Aghast.
Aghast.
Everyone was aghast at the verdict. Hank looked at her, aghast.
Agile.
Agile.
Dogs are surprisingly agile. He was physically strong and mentally agile. With surprising agility, Carl darted across the road.
Aging.
Aging.
Aging movie stars.
Europe's aging population. Memory loss is often a part of aging.
Ageism.
Ageism.
Agitate.
Agitate.
Unions agitating for higher pay. His family are agitating to get him freed. I must warn you that any mention of Claire agitates your grandmother.
Agitated.
Agitated.
Amanda was getting visibly agitated.
Agitation.
Agitation.
She was in a state of considerable agitation. Mass agitation for political reform.
Agitator.
Agitator.
A political agitator.
Agitprop.
Agitprop.
Aglow.
Aglow.
The evening sky was still aglow. Linda's face was aglow with happiness.
AGM.
AGM.